Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
We're delighted to be joined by Stephen A. Smith, who joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line from Philadelphia. Stephen A., we'll get into the game tonight in a little bit, but what was your takeaway from the game that Lonzo played in his first matchup against LeBron last night?
Well, listen, I'm just looking at Lonzo, whether it's a good or a bad game with him. What I take away from anything watching him these days, I'm looking for aggression, guys, and the aggression is inconsistent. The assertiveness is inconsistent. That's what I want to see from him. I don't care how ugly his jump shot is at this particular juncture or what have you. He clearly has a high basketball IQ. He pushes the ball up the floor occasionally. When he does that, he's constantly looking to make the right play. He's a high IQ basketball player, highly intelligent and capable of running a show. But when you're the number 2 overall pick in the draft, you got to accept the responsibility that comes along with being that high of a pick, particularly when it's for the Los Angeles Lakers, and specifically the first pick that Magic Johnson has made as president of basketball operations for the franchise. You're the new guy. You're the franchise. You're the face of the franchise. You're the orchestrator of, the reinvigorated Showtime to some degree. You've got to be more assertive. And on too many occasions, I haven't seen that from him. A lot of people look at it and think about folks like myself and others who are critical of his game. It's not the game, for the most part, that we're being critical of, because he still gets rebounds. He still gets assists. He's playing defense better than most of us anticipated. He just needs to get in the weight room and get stronger and obviously improve on his jump shot. We know that. But the one thing that you shouldn't have to prod him to do is to be aggressive and to go after it, particularly the way some of the other guys that got drafted in the first round have been doing, the Jason Tatums, the Aaron Fox, Dennis Smith Jr.'s, Donovan Mitchells of the world, even Markkanen in Chicago and others. Those guys have been going after it. You're the number 2 overall pick for the Los Angeles Lakers. You got to be more aggressive, and that's been his problem more than anything else.
Yeah, the talk of such nice passes to his teammates when he has the shot. Is it everybody focusing on the nice pass, or should we be focused on maybe he's lacking that confidence to be taking the shot for where it's going right now as part of it as well? As far as games at the Garden, we just saw Oklahoma City go to Indiana, and we saw Paul George get booed at introduction every time he touched the ball. We know the situation with Carmelo in New York and Phil Jackson and how that all went down. What do you expect that reception to be like for Carmelo when he goes back to New York?
I think it's going to be much better than the reception Paul George received in Indiana, because he wanted to leave Indiana. He wanted out. He wanted to be in a better situation, even though in the very tail end, that's exactly what Carmelo Anthony wanted. For the most part, you had to push and prod Melo to get to that point, because he wanted to retire a New York Knick. He loved playing at the Garden. He loved representing the Knicks franchise. And Phil Jackson was so flagrant in his sabotage of Carmelo Anthony last year that Carmelo Anthony actually became a sympathetic figure. Phil Jackson talking to the media in September and then disappearing until April, using tweets to get at Carmelo and others, constantly leaving Carmelo Anthony to hang out being dry, where night in, night out, he was the one forced to answer questions that Phil Jackson should have been answering. He essentially devalued Carmelo Anthony to the point where when I spoke to Knick officials talking about why you couldn't get more for the services of a Carmelo Anthony, one of the things people privately lamented was the fact that he had been so devalued by Phil Jackson because of Phil Jackson's rhetoric that people were saying, hell no, we're not going to give you but so much for this guy, because of the way Phil Jackson talked about him, because obviously as president of basketball operations at the time, Phil Jackson had insight that other people didn't have, and he was unapologetic about the way he approached, addressing it. And so with that in mind, New York Knicks fans recognize that. They also remember that Carmelo Anthony had to be pushed and prodded to ultimately reach a point where he was willing to leave. This is a guy that wanted desperately to stay in New York and to be a New York Knick. If he had his druthers, he would have retired the New York Knick. But it didn't work out that way, and they're not going to blame him in terms of him wanting to leave. They might get on him because he wasn't as good as they would have liked him to be in terms of impact and as it pertains to their success or lack thereof. But he was a guy that wanted to stay in town. They're always going to remember that about Carmelo Anthony, and he's always going to be welcomed by New York Knicks fans because of that reality alone.
Stephen A. Smith with us on Golic and Wingo. Starting on January 2nd, the Stephen A. Smith Show will be heard nationally on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app from 1 to 3. All right, Stephen A., you're in Philadelphia for part of our All Access with the 76ers as they try and end a 16-game losing streak to Oklahoma City. You're going to be interviewing Sixers star Joel Embiid coming up on First Take. What are the things you want to get out of Joel as we get set for this All Access tonight?
And I'm just looking forward to talking to him. Apparently, initially we were going to talk to Ben Simmons as well. And from what I'm told by, because I covered the Sixers for so many years, working for the Philadelphia Inquirer for 17 years, I was told that Joel Embiid specifically asked to sit down with me. So evidently he's going to get at me because he wants to address the process or my feelings about the process. Well, he can do that. I'm looking forward to that conversation. But also, he's arguably the best big man in basketball. He's incredibly gifted in an era where it's clearly become a guard-oriented game. He still manages to fit right in because of the arsenal that he has on the offensive side of the ball. He's just a sensational young player with tremendous promise. If he can only stay healthy, the sky's the limit. He's simply that great of a basketball player, and his potential is off the charts. But I'm going to talk to him about that. I'm going to talk to him about, where he wants to rank or where he believes he can ultimately end up ranking with the pantheon of big men throughout NBA history. From, you're talking about the Russells, the Chamberlains, the Jabbars, the Shaquille O'Neals of the world. And here this guy comes, and you just got to look at it from that perspective. Olajuwon as well. Can't forget to throw him in there. You got to wonder who he models his game after, what kind of potential he believes he has, and what kind of potential he believes this franchise has with the combination of him and Ben Simmons, because Ben Simmons is the truth, fellas. If this guy develops a jump shot, we can talk about the heir apparent to LeBron James, who's in his 15th season in the NBA, but I'm here to tell you something right now. If Ben Simmons gets a jump shot, he'd be the closest thing to what we see from LeBron on a night-in, night-out basis, because at 6'10", with his ball handling and passing skills, literally playing the point for the Philadelphia 76ers, there's just no limit to what they could end up potentially accomplishing if his game continues to flourish.
Well, listen, it's been fun to watch not only Simmons but Joel Embiid, and we'll see what the process has for you on First Take. Steve, we appreciate you being with us. Thanks very much.
Steven.
No problem, fellas.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Hey girl, have you done something new with your scales? Using new moisturizer? Nice. It really brings out the hazel in your eyes. Oh, hold on. Are you using whitening strips too? Your fangs look good, girl. Really good.
A really charming snake charmer? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Wait, what? Have you been doing Pilates too?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Looking at a weekend coming up here on Golic and Wingo. We are happy you're with us on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. We've talked a lot about the NBA and what went on last night and what is going on tonight. Obviously, a huge weekend in the NFL coming up. The big Titanic tilt is obviously the Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the New England Patriots. On one level, maybe the worst thing that could have happened for the Steelers was the Patriots to lose on Monday.
How about it?
They rarely lose backto-back games.
And you think Bill will use that to refocus them? You're getting Gronk back as well. So, just when everybody says, the demise of the Patriots, 3 losses, oh my God, let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, if you're a Steeler, would you can't you just get a scare and win?
Yeah, how about it?
Just maybe get a little nicked up and let's still win the game.
Blow them out and feel good about yourselves.
However, there's a scenario that exists that if Pittsburgh wins and Jacksonville loses, although they're playing the Texans and they may not have Tom Savage out there yet, that would be a stretch, then the Steelers could literally lock up home field advantage, which is huge. You know who cannot lock up home field advantage? That would be the Cleveland Browns.
No, they cannot.
They are 0-13 for the second straight year, the only team in NFL history to start back-to-back seasons 0-13. They have a new GM, and John Dorsey, who replaces Sashi Brown. And, John was on a radio station and was asked about, on 850 WKNR, and was asked about why they continue to lose. And, well, he was pretty blunt with his assessment.
You got to get a guy like that players. And you know what? I'll come straight out with it. You know what? The guys who were here before that system, they didn't get real players. And I think, as Bill Parcells would always say, you are your record. And you know what? There it is. So that's the truth teller in this thing. And I'm going to do my darndest to get Hugh players. And that's all I can ask for, and that's all I'm going to do. I like the man.
Okay, the guy he was talking about there is Hugh Jackson, the head coach. Because let's be clear, John Dorsey was told when he got the job, Hugh Jackson is going to be your coach.
Right.
So he has to work with that. What was your take on how he said basically the guys that were here before, I guess including Sashi Brown and maybe the other GMs who had been there before, just didn't get enough good players?
I mean, listen, it's the truth. I'm never one of those that, it depends on your line of talk outside the locker room. I've never, anybody who's ever heard me for the last 18 years knows I like to keep that stuff in there. If Dorsey wants to sit there and say that in-house to people, I'm cool with it. Was it the most damning thing ever said of calling people out? No, it wasn't. So I know I'm still not a fan of it publicly. Just say, hey, we got work to do here. Things are bad. And I know all the fans are like appreciating his honesty. Appreciating his honesty. I mean, does he need to say that for you to understand what the situation is? They haven't been getting good players. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Well, was he speaking to the team or was he speaking to the fans and saying that?
I don't know who he was speaking to. I mean, I know everybody has an agenda, but no matter what he was saying, who was he saying it to? Is it not obvious? Does he need to say it to the team? Do they think that 2 years in a row they're 0-13 to start both season? Does he need to tell the team they stink? Is this for the fans? Fans, I'm behind you. We haven't had the players here. That's my job. I got to get them for you. Really? Thanks for the news flash. It hasn't worked out too well for us. So, yes, he was very truthful. I get it. As I said, I'm not overly a fan, and I know people say, oh, the players, you're sensitive. It's not about being sensitive. It's just about more questions to ask, because then, the next reporters go to Hugh. Well, what do you think about that? He says the players you got in the past, he hasn't gotten your players. Or you go into the locker room. Hey, what do you think if a player who's been here for 3 years, your new GM doesn't think that these guys got your player? I mean, that's my whole point of this. What's the next question it leads to? Yeah. And do you need that? Do we think they're going to become better because player X in the locker room is going to be asked about that? Why do you need it? Why do we need to be concentrating on that other than, you know what? It's a bad show going on in Cleveland right now.
That's one word for it.
Something like that, I couldn't say the other.
Correct.
Something like that
say it once.
Just leads to other, do you need it? Do you need Hugh Jackson now asked about it? Do you need the players asked about it now? Because that's what reporters are doing. I'm not blaming reporters for doing it at all. That's my basic point of not talking like that publicly, not for anybody's feelings. I don't care about anybody's feelings. You're a professional athlete. I get it. But do you need that then? Do you need someone coming in and trying to dig a little more with the next questions they're going to ask on what your new GM said?
I hear what you're saying, and that's a fair point. But I like the fact that he's taking the Bill Parcells approach. I don't care if you're sore feelings. I don't care. We got to get better. The bottom line is this is something that has never happened in the history of the NFL. And it's not, to me, it's not putting pressure on the players or Hugh Jackson because, as we said, Hugh's going to be there. He's already got the backing of the owner. To me, it's John Dorsey saying the pressure's on me.
No,
I've got to do better. And they've got 2 firsts and 3 seconds in this upcoming draft.
If he didn't say anything, is the pressure still on him?
Yes.
Okay. So here's my thing. When something is done for a team, you like to think it's calculated, right? Not so much when a player talks, but when a coach talks,
correct,
or maybe GM talks, it's calculated. Did anything he say, is it going to change his job description on what he needs to do?
No.
Okay? So on the positive side of that. On the negative side, it's going to make people come in and ask more questions of him, of Hugh Jackson, and of players. And do you need that? Well, I guess that's my point is, what good is that going to do anybody?
Would you be okay with it if he went to the team or he said to this team, hey, look, guys, we're not good enough. We need to get – some of you guys won't be here next year.
I've always said, just go in that locker room, without question. You could call out players in the locker room. You can point to players in the locker room and say, you may not be here, but it's in the locker room. It's where, in my case, in my opinion, it should be, because that's who's going to affect what's going on in the field, the players on that field, the coaching staff. So you can say whatever you want behind those closed doors. I am all for that. But when you start doing it publicly, all you do is then bring the media in, which, again, I'm not blaming them for doing, and start trying to ask questions and pick at it.
Well, maybe he was doing that to get the media to actually show up for the Browns. I mean, because, they're 0-13 for 2 straight years. House. Come on in. Talk to anybody you want.
Hey, we're serving food.
Exactly. We'll have beverages, and John Dorsey will point out who he doesn't think is a good player. Look, I really don't have a problem with it. When you're 0-13, you're 0-13 2 straight years. Hey, man, listen, I mean, look.
It does seem like everything's on the table.
Everything should be on the table at this point. Maybe he just should have said, dilly. And that would have been better, right? Maybe that would have been better.
Dilly, you know what I mean? Everybody went, oh, yeah,
exactly.
Sure, yeah, we got you.
Pit of misery. Yeah. That's what it's been in Cleveland for 2 straight years.
Talked a lot about that game. Have not talked a lot about Jets at Saints. Saints sitting there, the top of the 9-4. Carolina also 9-4. Carolina hosting Green Bay. This is one of those, the way the Jets are playing. I know the Saints are at home, and boy, you don't let this one get away. Now, remember, Josh McCown is out, so Bryce Petty gets to kind of show his wares. A good opportunity for him. He's with the ones all week and able to work through that, be part of the game plan and such. So, and the Jets have been playing some good ball this year, Trey. Some tough ball. Everybody thought they were going to be up for the first pick. They're anything but. So this is one the Saints, even though they're at home, best be wary of.
Absolutely, and it will certainly help if the Saints can get Alvin Kamara back. He had the concussion in the previous Thursday night game. According to what we've heard, he went through practice yesterday, full practice, and if there were no lingering effects, then he would be cleared to play. Because it's amazing to think about, Mike, because all the success that Drew Brees has had over the years there. Right now, this offense is run on the ground.
It absolutely
with the two-headed monster between Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, who, by the way, as I said, is not human. He's a cephalopod. I can't tackle him.
I agree with you, but Ingram had the toe issue, right? So then Kamara goes out. Ingram's got the toe. I think they only ran the ball 15 times. So you need them both in there to work the way it's been working. So we'll see if he's did practice. If everything's good there, we'll see him on the field. But tough. I think a tougher game
Sneaky
than some would think.
I agree.
Against the Jets, even though it's not Josh McCown, who's been having a very nice year for the Jets at quarterback.
Jets have exceeded everybody's expectations. They really have. There's a couple other games we haven't really dealt with as well. One of them is kind of an elimination game. Between the Cowboys and the Raiders. It's a Sunday night game. Dallas has bounced back with 2 straight wins after some real losses, and this is the last game that they'll play without Ezekiel Elliott. Look, they're trying to get in the wild card hunt right now. This game is going to be in Oakland, but Dak's coming off a really impressive game against the Giants where he threw for 3 touchdowns and over 300 yards, and the defense with Sean Lee back really stepped up.
Yeah, it has, and this is one of those games that you're right, either lost by a team and you're going to look they're already on the outside looking in. This would probably finish them off. Oakland has been such a disappointment this year, coming off of last year with the high level they were playing at, and then Carr goes down, and that was pretty much it for them. So you're thinking, okay, get Carr back. Man, they're ready to take that next step, and it has anything but happened between like them and the Denver Broncos have been very underachieving this year. And the Cowboys, I just don't think they have enough this year. Now without, as we said, without Zeke and without Sean Lee missing games as well. Too inconsistent, I think, to be any kind of playoff threat, even if they were to get in, and I don't think they're getting in.
Right. Look, they got to go play Seattle, and they'll finish up with Philadelphia, and depending on what's
going
on with Philadelphia, they may need that game or they may not need that game. And we haven't talked much about the Chargers and Chiefs either. That's a Saturday night primetime game. It's in Kansas City. Chargers lost that home game in L.A. earlier this year. And look, the Chiefs turned it around last week with a big win over the Raiders. But are you really going to bet against L.A. right now, the way the Chargers are playing?
I don't think
I am. It's hard to do.
It really is. What's going on with what Melvin Gordon's been doing, certainly Keenan Allen and Phillip Rivers. I mean, the way they've been getting it done offensively, they've been fun to watch, and defensively playing well as well with the pass rushers they have and what they're doing from the sacking side, 37 sacks for the year. Bosa with 11.5 of those sacks. They have those edge rushers that you want to help with pressure on the quarterback. And I would imagine, I mean, you want Travis Kelce much more involved, and Kareem Hunt, when he's involved in touching the ball more, which he was early in the season, I believe they know they need to get back to that. But the Chargers tough to bet against right now. I just love offensively. I can't say enough about Keenan Allen and the rebirth he's had out there. 83 catches, almost 1,150 yards right now, and 5 touchdowns. It's really been big time for him. And like I said, with Melvin Gordon, the double threat that he is, they're tough to bet against right now.
They really are. And Phillip Rivers is playing as good as he's played, or as well as he's played, I guess, in his entire career. And then you have those two ends coming off, Bosa and Ingram.
Yep.
I mean, they will disrupt any offense that they play. So I'm really curious to see how that plays out. So those are the big games coming up in the football weekend. It is also a big weekend in cinema.
Yes, it is.
Because Star Wars is coming out, The Last Jedi, until they make a new Jedi.
Right.
But it's coming out now. So we sent our intrepid reporter, Jerry, to sort of see if we can get some Star Wars fans to talk a little sports.
Oh, wow. A Marlins hat. Hey, how long do you think it'll be before your team's a contender again?
800 years.
Wow. So you must not like Jeffrey Loria.
A long time have I watched all his life as he looked away to the future, to the horizon. Never his mind on where he was, what he was doing.
Well, okay, let's try this. If you could say one thing to Derek Jeter, what would you say?
You are reckless.
What about if you could say one last thing to Giancarlo Stanton?
Beware of the dark side. Anger, fear, aggression. Once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. Consume you it will.
Oh, listen, I'm a Red Sox fan, and even I'm not convinced they're that bad.
You will be. You will be.
There you go.
That just got to fit pretty good, actually.
It's nicely done.
Reckless.
Reckless. You will be. So we'll see how that plays out, and we'll see, of course, how the Star Wars premiere plays out. Lots of huge games in the NFL coming up on Week 15. And, of course, don't forget our All Access.
Right.
All day long throughout ESPN's platforms on radio, television, digital, everything for the Sixers game.
I didn't
tonight.
even ask. Are you a Star Wars guy? You going to go see this?
Yeah, I'm going to go see it.
Yeah, I mean, are you heavily in? I'm not dressing up wise.
I changed out of my Stormtrooper outfit to come down to do the show. No, I'm not that bad, but I will go see it. I'm going to go see it. You're going to go see it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Will you see it before we talk Monday?
No, I doubt it. I doubt I'll get into a theater before that.
I like your chances.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so thanks for being with us. Hey, wherever you're doing and whatever you're doing, have a great weekend. This is Golic and Wingo. We'll see you later.